Hello, everyone. Good morning. Yeah, okay. Good morning and thanks for joining us today in this INNOV-EAT day. So for those of you who don't know me, my name is Dhanush and I'm the founder of INNOV-EAT, which is a think and do tank for food and climate. And so we've developed a three-stage approach to our life in the next 6 years. And one of that is INNOV-EAT. So what does INNOV-EAT mean? INNOV-EAT is about innovation in food systems. So it's not just about the technologies, that's a big part, but also thinking about social innovations, institutional innovations, the changes, the new ideas that can change food systems. So that's what INNOV-EAT is all about. And so today, what we're doing this day is thinking about what are those new ideas and how can we help to get them to scale. And that's where we will be kicking off this morning by thinking about opportunities, particularly in Africa. What are the key opportunities, and hear from this panel on those opportunities. And we've been able to secure funding from the Trafigura Foundation for the next 3 years to actually, once we identify those opportunities, to actually action them. So how can we bring stakeholders together behind the new ideas that we identify here today? So although there are very few of us here, it's a great opportunity because whatever we feed into here, we can actually do it for the next 3 years. So that's a great opportunity. So that's a bit of the context. So we will start with thinking about the key opportunities in Africa, and we will be moving on to discuss the opportunities with the private sector, what are the financial innovations which are needed, what are the trade innovations which are needed. So all the different kinds of innovations that's on the table. That's the focus of today. We are also launching a few different publications today which highlight our own experience. We've been trying to gather information from different sources, and particularly relevant to this is my colleague Viba, who's over here. And we've been looking at the county level in Kenya to understand what are the opportunities, not just at the national level, but at the subnational level. So there's a very interesting paper looking at what are those opportunities, what are those wins that we can have at the subnational level. So go to our website, and we're saving on paper, but it'll be an interesting read. But with that, I'll just hand over to Bruce Campbell, who's INNOV-EAT's Chief Innovation Strategist, my former boss. Over to you, Bruce.
Okay, great. So we have all these wonderful global reports about transforming food systems. I don't know if the sound is good enough.
Yeah.
That's okay? So we have all these amazing reports about transforming the food system at global level, problems of subsidies at global level, and it's really clear that we're not doing enough actually in country level in terms of making changes and getting the food system transformed for poverty alleviation, for food insecurity, for all these things that are needed. And so I have a panelist here from country, national governments, and what we want to explore is what are some of the successes that you've seen in your countries, and what are the small things that are needed to actually blow up those successes to many more small-scale farmers. What do we really need to do to transform food systems? Well, we have to get our hands dirty at country level and stop talking about these global reports. So my two panelists here this morning are Edson Konde from the National Met Service in Zambia, where he's the director. And Madeline has given me the permission to not pronounce her name correctly, but it's Madeline Usabi Babazi.
Yes, right.
And she's an environment and climate change specialist in the Ministry of Agriculture, with a special focus actually on the IFAD projects at the moment. So perhaps we can start with you, Edson. What do you see as successes in the last few years where farmers have really changed the way they're doing business, they're improving their livelihoods, they're dealing with climate resilience? What are some of the key successes you've seen?
Okay, so probably if I can tell you about Zambia. Zambia is in the Southern Africa region, and most of the population more than 50% is dependent on agriculture. But agriculture also faces a lot of challenges in terms of climate change, extreme weather events from droughts, floods, and high temperatures. So all those things impact the agricultural sector, the farmers, especially the smallholder farmers in the rural areas of the country. And so the provision of climate services for us is very critical, so that now we can inform the farmers, for example, in terms of what do they need to do, how do they need to adapt. So for us, climate information has been very central in transforming the agricultural system. So for example, what we've been doing with partners is to look at how do we localize, how do we present information to the local communities, the smallholder farmers, so that they can use that information now to make decisions. Decisions that can range from what crops can they grow if the season is short? What interventions can they do? How can they plan the whole farming process to make sure that they are productive and to make sure that there's resilience in what they are doing? So for us, I think the key things have been in terms of providing climate services that can support their agricultural activities. So we've partnered, for example, with the University of Reading, with our own Ministry of Agriculture, and through support from GIZ, for example, where we have now collected a lot of climate information on the ground, because we need to localize, we need to tailor this information so that it speaks to their local needs. So we've been collecting, for example, simple things like observations, weather observations that have been carried out for the past, in some cases, 100 years, which have been on paper. So we digitize those so that we can now make sense of them. We can generate information from that digitized data. But also working with experts, come up with advisories, agricultural advisories. So blending meteorological data sets and agriculture expertise to come up with advisories that can now guide the farmers in terms of how they do their agricultural activities during the season. But also, we've now developed an app, an application, a mobile application that provides all this information, that delivers all this information to the extension service workers in the Ministry of Agriculture, but also to the farmers, so that they readily access this information, so that this information is easily accessible and it helps them to make decisions. So far, in that project that we've been working with GIZ, University of Reading, and our Ministry of Agriculture, we targeted 5,000 farmers, and during the period, I think 5 or so years, we've seen a lot of improvements in terms of the feedback, the evaluation that we've done. 90% of farmers reported that there is good improvement in terms of their yield. There is food security at the household level from the 5,000 farmers. 90% of them report that now they are food secure. So those are, for me, those are the small things that we've been able to do in terms of influencing, improving productivity, ensuring that there is food security at the household, just through provision of tailored weather and climate services.
Okay, great. Yeah. I guess I've got some follow-up questions, but let's first hear from Madeleine. What is, in Rwanda, what are the kind of successes that you've seen?
Yeah, thank you very much. Maybe allow me to take 1 minute to take you to put in the picture to anyone in this room who do not have any information about the agriculture in Rwanda. Firstly, Rwanda is a country of 26,000 kilometers square with more than 12 million population. Secondly, the agriculture sector is being practiced, or more than 80% of Rwandan community depend on agriculture. Secondly, the agriculture is being practiced on steepy and fragile land because of the relief of Rwanda, which is a mountainous country, a country of 1,000 hills. Thirdly, or the third fact sheet is that the climate change has brought a systemic, a kind of additional burden to the systemic challenges that have been facing Rwandan community, including land scarcity. As I said, nowadays we are the average land size per household is 0.3. Secondary is that there is an issue of lack of financial access. The financial access is a critical challenges among those small Rwandan community. The third fact sheet is that by and large, the scientific report that we are still standing at 15% of reaching our productivity potential. 50% among key staple commodities, most of key staple commodities. We are standing at 15% of our productivity potential. So concerning some of the little things that have really brought kind of impactful changes among Rwandan farmers, I can name some few and try to narrate some of them. I can start by smart hunganire, which is like the smart subsidy. So under smart subsidy, it's a kind of digital system whereby a farmer can go by using a cell phone, any phone being a smart or not, and log in by just typing 774. And by the time of logging, he put he followed the instruction and feed the system. He provided the information about the UPI number. Each land in Rwanda have been mapped and digitalized and registered. Each land parcel belongs to someone. It means that if you go to load to that system, you have first to put your UPI number, which is the reference number to your land parcel. By providing the UPI number to the land parcel, it means that you are providing information about your land size. Well, after providing information about the land size, you proceed by making your request. Maybe you want to request for a fertilizer or for seed. And then after requesting those information, normally we are saying that this is one of the things that have really brought impactful kind of result or changes in Rwandan community society, because it is a successful tool in terms of planning on the sides of the government as well as the private partners, agro-dealers. Before they started to import fertilizers and the seed, they first check on the request, how much have been requested in terms of fertilizers, in terms of seed. And secondly, it also helped the Ministry of Agriculture as well as other development partners to plan accordingly. Because as you are saying, the government is providing subsidy, is subsidizing fertilizers and seed. So it helped the Ministry of Planning to know and budgeting to know how much we are going to allocate to the Ministry of Agriculture, because we know how much have been requested in terms of fertilizers and seed. So it is easier to calculate according to the range of subsidies that we are providing to a given fertilizer and to a given seed crop. And secondly, we are saying it is a successful tool because they have enforced the level of accountability and transparency. Before it was difficult even to the side of the private partners, the agro-dealers, to come and to claim for their the portion of the subsidy from the government. Mm-hmm. It was not difficult to report how much they have provided to the farmers, because the farmers doesn't know exactly how sizes their land. And on the other hand, it was even difficult for the government custodian institution, the Ministry of Agriculture and Rwanda Agriculture Board, to report back to the general auditors how much money that they have spent when they go to cross-check if the quantity of fertilizers and seed that have been provided to the farmers, it was difficult. But nowadays it is easier. It is automatic. And thirdly, we are saying that it is one of the successful tools because of the level of success we are seeing in terms of productivity and production. Actually, as of today, even a farmer himself or herself, he knows that I will need this quantity of seed and fertilizer, and he started to plan ahead of time in a way that he will be able to mobilize his own contribution in terms of subsidy to be able to acquire enough quantity of seed and fertilizers, because he knows exactly the land size and he knows exactly how much he will need in terms of seed and fertilizer. Those are some of the groundbreaking kind of impact and solution that have been brought by this smart Hungary. Maybe the second one, which I can give also, is the use of weather and climate information. This was been one of the groundbreaking kind of success stories in Rwanda from the years of 2016 and up to date. And think even when you go to the internet, try to Google, we'll be giving you some link. We have been having really study tours from different countries, mainly the African countries, coming to learn how the Rwanda farming communities are using weather and climate information to inform their farming operations. We started a little bit back. I don't know if I will be able, with the limited time that I have been given, to narrate the long story, but to cut the long story short, I can say that we started by partnering with SEAT in 2015 in parallel with Rwanda Meteorological Agency. For that time, the Rwanda Meteorological Agency were having the responsibility to provide like a basic kind of training session to the Rwandan farming community on how to read and interpret weather and climate information. Because even prior, it used to be broadcasted even through radio. But farmers were not aware. We are not even interested to listen to them because they did not have any understanding. If they are saying that there will be abnormal rainfall, what does it mean? There will be no more rainfall, what does it mean? They were not really even interested because they did not know the meaning of those terms and concepts of weather, climate, and climate. They did not have any understanding about it. And second, Rwanda Meteorological Agency being the custodian of the weather and climate information, they were having a responsibility to provide us with daily, weekly, month, and seasonal forecast. Then SEAT comes to provide us with kind of advanced kind of training to our smallholder farmers on how to use weather and climate information for planning their different agricultural operations by using what we call PICSA methodology, Participatory Integrated Climate Information Services in Agriculture. So that one helped because the tool, the way it is designed, it is really customized to the level of understanding to someone who have spent few days on the chair sitting running. It is a simplified one. Yes. So it helps them to understand very clearly by giving them historical weather climate information in a simple way. From the years 8, season A and season B. During season A, you receive this amount of rainfall, and the onset date was this one, the cessation was this one, and then they calculated the interval. By knowing the interval, they know how many days, rainfall days, and then they used to provide them with crop water requirement to their many staple commodities. And then they leave them time to go and to reflect what is the probability of succeeding the season if we keep doing business as usual. And then after, they also help them to do what they call resource allocation map. Allocation of resource in terms of human resources, because some of the technology farmers used to say that they are labor intensive. However, when they look at how they are using the human resources at the household level, they are misusing because they do not have a priority in terms of having climate action as a priority. But after having seen how the situation is This is the situation that we are standing in. This is the amount of rainfall, season A and season B, from the years of 8 up to date. So the probability of succeeding is almost zero. So are we going to keep doing business as usual, or we are at least going to adjust one of the agriculture practices, one or two more of the agriculture practices that we have been doing? So we are really seeing more ground on the ground. Really, we are having a lot of successful stories. We are having some of the farmers cooperatives that have managed themselves to buy like more of like 50 small water pumps by using their own resources, because they have seen that we have to change the situation, and we have been misusing the financial resources. Let us adjust the way we have been spending and put climate action as a priority. So thank you.
Thanks, Madeline. So so you're dealing with 5,000 farmers. I'm not totally familiar with Zambia, but I'm sure there's about 1 million farmers. What is needed to get to scale on these kinds of things?
Okay, thank you very much. So what we've been doing is we've started with, there are a total of 10 provinces in Zambia. So we started with the eastern part of the country and the southern part of the country, and not all the communities in those provinces. We've just selected one to pilot so that we can learn from there and see how we can scale. So some of the things that we are looking at is, because in some areas we don't have adequate, for example, observation infrastructure in terms of meteorological observations. And that is very key to producing the relevant localized weather and climate services that can support the farmers. So one of the aspects that we are looking at is to expand just installing simple things as a rain gauge, because that can inform the farmers in that location in terms of the rainfall pattern and what actions they need to do. Just a rain gauge. And also building on the digital platforms that we have created with the University of Reading, with support from GIZ, to see how we can reach in those areas where we are not present. But also what we are doing is build partnerships, because, for example, I'm talking as from the Met service.
Yeah.
We are not spread across the country, but the Ministry of Agriculture Extension Services wing reaches all the farmers. So we want to partner with them to ensure that our information can now reach the farmers through their presence on the ground. But also the other thing that we've seen is that we need to, because we are getting a lot of feedback from the farmers in terms of, from the 5,000 farmers that we've targeted, in terms of what type of information they would require. So we are getting that feedback, and then on the other hand, we partner with research and research institutions to see how we can now develop that information that is fit or is required, is needed by the farmers on the ground. So in terms of scaling, those are the things that we are doing. We want to expand, first of all, our observation network in terms of climate observations, but also go beyond just observing the climate. Because if we are observing the climate, simple things like rainfall, and then we are also observing agriculture aspects such as yield, diseases that are in that location, and such things. That information now makes us have much more power to provide what the farmers in that locations need. And also the other partnership I was talking about is with the research institutions, so that they can make sense of the data. What is the data telling us? How is the climate changing? How is it impacting the different aspects of agriculture? From yield to diseases to pests, and what are the information that we need to generate from the data that we are collecting. So that's what we are looking at, partnerships, but also leveraging on the digital platforms, the technology that is coming forth. So that we can now get the feedback from the farmers, generate the information that they require, and then give it to them so that they become more productive. So essentially, that's what we are thinking in terms of moving forward and scaling up to reach the other provinces.
Okay.
Yes.
So I'm really happy that you mentioned localized, because you need such context-specific information for a particular farm or plot of land. But it's quite a contradiction, because to do that at a national level is very tough. And so I'm also happy that you mentioned the extension services, because they're probably the agency that's got the biggest reach.
Yes.
To what extent is the extension services ready for a digital era and context-specific advisories to farmers? Is that something that really needs to happen, or it's in progress?
It's I would say it's in progress, because one of what government has done, for example, is to provide digital devices to extension service workers, so that we can also, as meteorological service providers, can ride on that to provide the meteorological services. One of the things that we are also doing is we've selected in the same two regions, the eastern and the southern, the 5,000 farmers. What we are also doing is interfacing with extension service workers, so that we train them in terms of understanding what, when we say, for example, like my colleague was mentioning earlier, there are a lot of things that we mention that are not easily understood by the farmers. If we say, for example, in our seasonal rainfall forecast, we say the season is going to be above average, above normal. What is the implication to the farmer on the ground? How do they use that information to make decisions? So that is what we are doing, training the extension services workers so that they become our intermediaries, so that if they understand our information, the way our information is laid out, then they can easily explain to the farmers and easily give advisories to the farmers, agro advisories, based on the information that we are. So the other aspect is training the extension service workers to understand climate services.
Okay, great, yeah. And Madeleine, back to you. So I'm really interested about the subsidy scheme. And as I understood, it's digitalized.
Yes.
So I'm familiar with, I've been doing some work in Malawi where they also attempted to do the flexible subsidy schemes with digital, but there was lots of problems in terms of connectivity, and farmers actually suffered quite a bit. Is, have there been similar experiences in Rwanda, or it's the digital system is working perfectly?
It is not the case. As I said, if you remember, I started issue of financial institution reluctance to invest their funds in the agriculture sector, but this time around it is not yet. We are not yet there. That is our vision, but we are not there. That's why I'm saying that if it is possible, for example, for farmers to access subsidy, I'm not saying 100% free kind of giving or of things. We are saying that a matching. Farmers have to mobilize their own contribution, but also there should be someone also to match the little that they can mobilize.
Okay, no, that's great. So we've got 10 minutes or so, I think, for some questions. And Alain, yeah. She's going to give you a, yeah.
Yes, thank you. Alan Myandinda from Rwanda, also an environmentalist, working on a project funded by World Bank. I would like to complete his ideas. He said, in Rwanda, we helped access to IT equipment to many farmers now. So, as she said, with the smart Hunganele, you may be able to access even financial institutions by dealing the USSD codes, and maybe borrow some money to finance your immediate activity right now. Mm-hmm. That's one. Secondly, many banks in Rwanda also has accepted that farmers can borrow their money at very cheap rates, so that they can, help farmers to grow their business activities, but also the government Rwanda invests a lot in matching grants. So by matching grant also, it's a kind of support the government invested in a lot, and even my project that I'm working with in now, we are helping farmers by supporting them by at least 25% to 50, depending on the project, the sub-project proposal. For example, if you want to grow in greenhouses, you may be requested 20% contribution, whether 80% is supported by the government. When she mentioned also about SSIT equipment, powered by a solar panel. Also, the same project help farmers accessing those solar panels, but also by contributing only 50%. So that's some factor that shows that farmers may easily access funds and be supported by the government. Thank you.
Okay, fantastic. Yeah.
Yeah.
Some more questions? Viva?
Thank you. Yeah. So I actually have a question for both representatives today. So thank you very much for sharing those interesting insights from both countries. And I'm also drawing a little bit of the work that I've been doing in Kenya the past half a year or so. So first, perhaps the representative from Rwanda. It's very interesting to hear about the system that you're using also for farmers, that they can take their own initiative in requesting input materials like fertilizers, for example. But I was really wondering also if there's some sort of a control mechanism to see how many fertilizers they actually request, because just putting more and more fertilizers, especially if they're chemical fertilizers, for example, do not always benefit the long-term soil health sustainability of the soils of farms. So just wondering if there's also something into that aspect that is incorporated in the system that you're using. And then for the representative from Zambia, also really interesting to hear, and I might be doubling down a little bit on a question from Bruce on extension services. So in Kenya, agriculture is a devolved function, meaning that the implementation of climate actions is with the subnational level, so with the provinces or counties. I'm not sure how that works in Zambia, but this also means that most of the extension services are led through the subnational level from counties. And what we see in Kenya is that there is a huge challenge around extension officers trying to reach the ground level and the farms, because human capacity in the counties is often very limited. So I was wondering also in Zambia how it works with the extension service. It might be on a national level, but how is it in terms of reaching the farmers on the ground? Do you also face any challenges in the country, or is there a model that you use to making sure that the extension officers and extension services really find the farmers on their farms itself? So thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you very much for sharing the experience of Kenya. First of all, as I said, this Smart Hunganire has been introduced as a solution to this issue of accountability and transparency in this area of subsidizing agro input. And as you said, before it was even easier to put, for example, 2 tons of urea or for someone who is owning, for example, 0.2 hectares of land, because at that time they were putting, for example, 2 hectares. But this time around, since you are requested to put UPI numbers only, your parcel reference number. So after putting your parcel reference number, the land size, the gadget of land size is automatically filled. You don't have to fill. It seems that any one of the agro dealer cannot try to cheat at this time, because it is automatically you put only your UPI, and after putting your UPI, the land size will fill it automatically. So it is no longer possible to cheat on that side. Yes.
Completing his idea, the system that she said, the Smart Hunganire, when you enter his UPI numbers, immediately it calculated the amount of fertilizer you have to put in that type of soil, because in Rwanda you have different soils, and the country was the whole country now is mapped, so you may know what quantity of fertilizer to put in particular plot in particular place, because since we have different area, different plots, and would require different quantity of fertilizer. Thank you.
Itsu?
Yeah, thank you very much. Yes, I think we have had challenges in terms of the numbers, in terms of the extension service workers, and that's what government is now addressing, because I think there's a realization that the potential in terms of contribution from the agricultural sector to our GDP is very low. It's just about 3.5% contribution. But in terms of providing, for example, employment, it's over 50%, provides 50% of our population. So you see that mismatch in terms of the potential that the agricultural sector can contribute. So government has a deliberate policy to ensure that we have a robust extension service system, and so structures are being put in place now from the district level. So we have about 116 districts. So each district has what we call agricultural camps, which are supposed to be managed by a camp extension officer. So that is what the government currently is doing to ensure that we have the manpower, but also a trained manpower with the resources. One of the things, for example, they are doing is to equip the extension service with digital tools, simple things like a tablet, where they can receive a lot of information that they can share with the farmers on the ground. But also increasing the numbers, because most of our population actually is in the rural areas. And in some of those districts, they are quite vast. There's one district can be as big as, for example, Rwanda. So ensuring that you capture all the farmers in that district is quite a challenge. So we're looking at creating a structure that ensures that we are able to reach all the farmers. Yes.
More questions? No? So what I can see is very different situations between the two different countries.
Yeah.
But I'm guessing that finance is a common theme.
Yes.
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 And so it's really interesting to hear about the ways forward, both in terms of external projects, but also the national banking system and insurance programs and credit for farmers.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm thinking that that may be one of the ways forward in terms of some common work when we start working in these 5 different countries.
Yes.
But I think what's really cool is this whole idea of how do you get to farmer level
The farmer.
and tailor stuff for farmers. And it's fantastic that farms are digitized and you've got all this information on soils. I mean, that's the way one has to go. And another key institution is going to be the extension service. And I'm sure that's the case in Rwanda as well.
Yeah.
Particularly in terms of scaling up all the picture work
Yes.
to further farmers. When we selected or when we asked for panelists, we didn't realize that you would both be talking about weather information services. That's really interesting because it's really close to my heart as well in believing that that's super important.
Okay.
So thanks very much, everybody, and thanks to the panelists. And
Thank you to
we
the
hope
audience.
to continue the conversations.
Yes.
Yeah,
Yes.
thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.